Hello everyone and welcome as we tear into Biden's favorite Instagram Twink and dissect the claim that Biden is a top 3 president. I guess before we even get into it, we can consider the fact that top 3 presidents usually don't lose elections by huge margins. Either way, let's jump right into it.
It's the new year and all your friends are going on about how great Donald Trump's economy is. You should know that he's being handed probably the strongest, most robust economy in modern American history.
I guess it is always good to start a video with a joke, but the claim is questionable. Although there has been some job recovery after COVID, inflation has remained high under Biden. Even during the best month, inflation was still worse than any period under Trump, including during COVID. In 2023, unemployment reached a low of 3.5%, but subsequently rose above 4%. Real wage growth has barely kept pace with inflation, leading to economic stagnation rather than substantial growth. Any credit given to Biden for economic success should be viewed as a recovery from COVID. I know you're young, but history did not start yesterday. There are centuries of data on the American economy out there, and pretending like Biden has achieved anything beyond a regression to the mean is just ignorance. And really, we can't even give Biden credit for that. The data indicates that he has almost regressed to the mean. 1 year of damage, 4 years of recovery. It hasn't been fixed yet. He's just getting close to where we were 5 years ago now.
I mean, Joe Biden passed more fiscal legislation than any administration in the last 5 decades. He'll probably end up being a top 3 president all time in terms of just domestic legislation. I mean, $1.3 trillion for infrastructure, the largest infrastructure investment since Eisenhower. Over $1 trillion for climate change, the most ever. One of the largest investments ever in American history in manufacturing. I mean, the CHIPS Act, we've spent more money on electrical manufacturing, like investment in electrical manufacturing for computer chips, than ever. And it's not even close. We're just like creating new industries everywhere. And we're also passing reform for like veterans healthcare, the PACT Act, capping drugs for seniors on Medicare.
Alright, passing the most bills and spending the most money is not the mark of a great president. It's how you spend that money, what those bills achieve, and the long-term ramifications of passing the legislation that matter. For instance, while spending money on infrastructure is obviously a good and necessary thing, this doesn't necessarily lead to many positive economic indicators over the long term. It doesn't actually spend enough money to get America's infrastructure back in order, while simultaneously nearly all of the job growth that could be attributed to these projects is temporary and sporadic across the country. A top 3 president would have developed some kind of program that would have had longer-term ramifications for both the economy and our infrastructure. What Biden managed to achieve was a temporary boost in polling numbers and some minor economic indicators that will expire with him. Now looking at the CHIPS Act, which is really not much of an economic package at all. It actually only spends a few $1 billion. It's a necessary investment for geopolitical reasons because all of our high technology manufacturing relies on chips that come from an island that is, for all intents and purposes, touching China. An island that China very much wants to take control of again and may or may not invade at any given day. So the CHIPS Act accelerates the existing investment in manufacturing here. We need them to manufacture here for national security reasons, and it makes sense for them to start manufacturing here regardless, because why spend $1 billion on a factory in a country that could, explode any day, or you could just make that investment in America where you're very far away from ICBMs and cruise missiles. Meanwhile, the VA has returned to joke status among the military community under Biden. It wasn't that under Trump. Wonder what's different there. And capping the price of prescription drugs doesn't mean shit. When Trump did that, Biden revoked it, and then Biden re-implemented it. You don't get credit for copying the policies of someone whose policies you intentionally revoked right beforehand. Again, America has a history that extends back before you were in middle school.
I mean, right now the numbers don't lie. Our GDP is crushing every other nation on earth. The dollar is stronger than ever. Unemployment is low. We're almost at our 2% target for inflation. We have recovered faster from COVID than any nation on earth. So don't let them take credit for Donald Trump's economy when he doesn't do anything. Cause and effect. You can name all those pieces of legislation and say this was the cause of this economy. Donald Trump's not going to get shit done. So it won't be his economy. Ugh.
Alright, I've already addressed several of these claims. We already know that unemployment is not historically low in any meaningful way, or that inflation is not at the 2% target. But let's talk about US GDP. US GDP is growing on pace with what it was for years prior to COVID, and that's why you didn't even try to make the claim that US GDP was growing faster than normal under Biden, because it simply isn't. What is technically true is that our overall economic recovery from COVID-19 is stronger than other nations, but that's hardly a result of Biden's policies. This comes down in large part to the way America handled COVID-19 to begin with, under Trump. Where relative to every other nation on Earth, we had minor lockdowns and kept our economy largely operational throughout. Whereas many other nations were effectively restarting their economies from scratch after COVID, after having spent far more money than we did. The same holds true for the US dollar. The dollar is not miraculously doing great. The fact that I spend easily double what I did on groceries before the pandemic speaks to that. Rather, everyone else in the world completely neutered their economy during COVID, and therefore destroyed the value of their economy more than we destroyed the value of ours. Which, by the way, is exactly what I predicted would happen while it was still Trump's first term. Which, to recap, is this. Everyone else was handling COVID worse than we were, and we did not handle it well. So our economy would look amazing when compared to other developed nations, while still absolutely getting its shit rocked compared to what it was like prior to the pandemic. 4 years of Biden later, and my predictions came true to a T. Yes, we're doing better than everyone else, but we still got our shit rocked compared to ourselves. I guess Biden gets credit for getting us back to the mean, but that's the mean. It is essentially the default. A top 3 president could have made us thrive.